The previous, so I think today's on popular request, today's class is going to be a short class because I think there is some planning for the Holi festival to be done after that. So I've been instructed to keep it to finish by 8:30. So in chapter 9, we were studying the. Can you give a copy of Bhagavad Gita to Bhavan? So we are studying from chapter 9, verse 13. So in chapter 9, Krishna was talking about the general theme is the most confidential knowledge that is given, which our understanding is that is giving us the path of reaching him. So that is what he calls as the most confidential knowledge. And in the previous two verses, in verses 11 and 12, Krishna had spoken about those who choose not to come to him. So he talks about those who are deluded, who are confused, and he says avajanati mamura, that fools deride me when I come in this human form. So the two verses talk mostly about those who do not have a strong interest in pursuing a path of spirituality or taking to Krishna consciousness. Now in these two verses, 13 and 14, he will talk about the other kind of people. Those who are interested in spirituality. Those who make a conscious effort to make spiritual advancements. So, verse 13, O son of Pratha, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. So, Krishna speaks very fondly about this category of people. He says, Mahatmanastu Mam Partha. So he calls them Mahatmas. So in India, sometimes we have this title of Mahatma that is reserved for people who are great, who have like Mahatma Gandhi. Great people we call Mahatma. Krishna uses a broader stroke over here and says that those souls who are making an effort to progress in the spiritual paths, he calls them Mahatmas. And why are they Mahatmas? Because they know of their relationship with Krishna. So this verse is in a way summarizing the essence of the Vedas. So when we look at the Vedas are divided into three parts. They are divided into Sambandha, Gyan. So part of the Vedas, they tell us about the nature of our relationship with God. That's one part, Sambandha Gyan. Second is Abhidaya Gyan, which is having understood the relationship, how do you work to establish that relationship? That is Abhidaya Gyan. And the third is Prayojana, which is having been established in the relationship, what is it that one experiences? So these are the three aspects of one's spiritual advancement, which is spoken, of course, in a lot of details in the Vedas. And you will see that this verse, it talks about these three aspects. So he says that they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. So what is that? That is sambandh gyan, right? Because they know. So sambandh is when you know the nature of the relationship. So he's saying that those who are established in this sambandh gyan, then what do? They are fully engaged in devotional service. So that is abhiday. So having understood your relationship with Krishna, what is the next step? You become fully engaged in devotional service. So that is the real purpose of knowledge, is to act upon it. Otherwise, knowledge is just mental speculation. You can read so many books, you can listen to so many discourses, and you can get knowledge. A few weeks ago, I was in this Vaishnav Muslim dialogue, and some of the people who were Islam, they were scholars. One of them was a professor from Harvard University, and very knowledgeable about because he was teaching, and Bhagavad Gita is one of the books that is taught in almost all the universities as part of their study of theology. So he was very knowledgeable about Bhagavad Gita, and of course he was a pious, devout Muslim, so he's in a way is a devotee, but the knowledge that he had was mostly theoretical. That this is how the Gita is organized. This is how the verses flow. Much more than a lot of Vaishnavas had, but it was knowledge. So the real purpose of knowledge is you act upon it. So here Krishna says that once when somebody knows that I am the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then the next step is that they are fully engaged in the devotional service. And what is the result of that? What is the prayojan? That one who is fully engaged in devotional service comes under the protection of the divine nature. So, what is something that is universal in the material world? The sense of fear. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that this material world is dukhalayam ashashvatam. So dukhalayam. So alayam means that it is a house of. Dukhalayam means that this is what predominates in the material world. Srila Prabhupada says that somebody might argue that it is not true. The material world is not actually a place of misery. And while there are some issues, but once the issue gets resolved, then it's a place of happiness. And to some extent, that may be true. But the more you step back from the perspective of time, the more you will see that the predominant theme of one's existence in the material world is dukhalayam. That there may be flashes of happiness that keeps us going. If it was 100% dukhalayam, then we would not be able to function. So there is always some streaks of happiness that keep us going, but ultimately you look at it, what is the biggest dukha? What is the biggest misery that we have? That ultimately we will all die. That's the biggest misery. That is unavoidable. And our path to death is that before dying, we'll become old. And old age is definitely not. I was reading this interesting quote today, where it said that old age is not for the weak-hearted. So you have to have a lot of strength and determination and perseverance and forbearance to be able to withstand old age. Your body does not support you anymore. Most of the time, your friends and relatives don't support you anymore. Your senses don't support you. So old age. And before old age, what do we have? We have so many diseases, one way or the other, that are we are constantly either afraid of or battling with. So one who takes to the, and of course Krishna does not want to paint a fatalistic picture. He's not saying that it's all doom and gloom. The point that he's making is that even while you're situated in this material world, even when you're dealing with Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi, with birth, death, disease and old age, by performing devotional service, you come under the protection of his divine nature. And Krishna is Abhayam. And one of the first symptoms that happens to a person who takes shelter of Krishna is that he becomes fearless. So Srila Prabhupada's initiated name was Abhay Charan Arvinda. So Bhay is fear, Abhay is fearless. And why is he fearless? Because Charan Arvindam. Because he has taken shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna. So this verse, it gives us a synopsis of the Vedas, gives us a high-level view of our own spiritual endeavor, that we begin by taking shelter of Krishna, by understanding the nature of Krishna through study of the Bhagavad Gita, through conversations amongst ourselves. We dispel our doubts, we talk about things that inspire us, talk about things that perhaps don't inspire us, and then once we have some level of conviction, we follow through by the execution of devotional service, and then the result that happens automatically, so we don't have to strive for it. The result that happens automatically is that Krishna extends his shelter to us. Questions, comments?
So, you said that we do have streaks of happiness in our lifetime, That's true, but that streak of happiness depends upon you, not upon somebody giving it to me. So I can make it big streak rather than make it small streak.
You could make it big, but it'll still be a streak.
Yeah, it'll be a streak.
So that's the nature that some people who have a more magnanimous attitude, who are more liberal, they are in the position to see the good in all situations, even in adversity.
Yeah.
Like sometimes people say that when I'm facing adversity, I try to see what is the message in it for me? How can I improve myself? Right? So they're trying to see positivity in all respects. But ultimately, even that sooner or later, there are situations that it is difficult to see. Prabhupada will say that if everything is going well, ultimately you die. Right? That is the final. So if somebody, I don't know of anybody, but if somebody leads a perfect life, perfectly happy, always full of vitality and vigor, surrounded by good friends, surrounded by good relatives. Bhagavatam 11th canto, a very nice description of as a person goes through life, what are the challenges that they have. If the person is opulent, then the more opulent the person becomes, more are the number of people who are looking to steal from him. The more the famous a person becomes, more are the people who are looking to take advantage of him. So with everything that happens that is positive, there is also challenges that come in. They say that the taller that a tree grows, the more it sways in the wind. Right? The more powerful a person is, the more powerful the enemies are. That's the nature of the material world. But even if that is not so theoretically, if somebody leads a perfect life, but there's still old age, there's still disease, still death there. Yes, true.
Krishna here talks about Mahatma, and probably if we translate it or split it, Mahan Atma, Mahatma. So by nature in chapter 2, Krishna explains the characteristics of Atma, that is character of soul. And by that, each soul is probably of the same nature of Satchit Ananda, like the Supreme Lord. Then what is the significance of saying Mahan Atma? So how it is different than, because Atma is of same character like the Supreme Lord, and where from this term Mahan Atma comes in, what is the significance?
Okay. Good question for discussion. What are your thoughts? The Prabhu is asking that so Atma is essentially the same by nature, the spirit soul. It is Satchit and Anand, and by nature, the pristine soul, all are pure. So when you say Mahan Atma, then is Krishna trying to make a distinction that there are some Atmas that are greater than other Atmas? What does the term Mahan Atma practically imply?
Like you told, Mahatma Gandhi has been named as Mahatma. So the soul, the characteristics will be similar, but it carries the karma, and after birth, with the present karma, it will be elevated. That the physical, material, everything, and not materialistic, but if controlling mind, doing good for others, and everything that is possible, like of a good characteristics, then the soul residing in that body, we can say, just understand.
So this is, so your sense that this is more pointing to the conditioned soul.
Yeah.
The soul residing in the body.
And the basic characteristic will be same, like cannot feel, burn on all those things, but the quality of the soul differs probably. Because even from Earth to human life, even in human life, 4 lakh species, so that's also differs, the quality.
Good. Thank you. Any other thoughts?
I think the people are the ones who tell, hey, he is a great soul. Like people with no price, they are considered a little bit better than other people,
Right.
So I consider the same thing with Mahatma too. So just like no price.
Okay, thank you. Rajneesh Prabhu?
Yeah. So I think the same explanation what Mataji was saying, and Prabhupada was also explaining while I was listening to one of his tapes where he is asking people to take on to the process of chanting, and the way he is explaining is the same thing, that when you take birth, you have a relationship, you are pure, you have still not come in the contact with the matter, but as you spend more time materially, you get conditioned, and that's where the importance of chanting is, because when you chant, your karmic reaction, and when you take to devotion, your karmic reactions get destroyed, and you stay connected with Krishna, and that's what I think this verse is also saying, that once you take to the devotional service, so there is a parallel. So those who take to devotional service, definitely they stay pure from a heart perspective, and those are probably Mahatmas. On the flip side, as we were studying the other day in Nectar of Devotion, there are people who are also termed soul killer, who are doing a lot of bad activities. Even though soul is Sachitanand, it's eternal, but
Atma.
Yeah.
Good point.
But also because Atma, like there are different meaning also here. Even sometimes for Jivatma, like which is with the body. The current is like the one who is embodied. So in that case, when once you are embodied, then there will be the relation, of course, variety.
Correct.
Like depending upon the qualities of the person.
Yeah. So all good answers. So so one understanding is that the word Atma is context sensitive. So Atma could mean the embodied self, which is the soul within the material body. It could mean the soul. It could also mean Krishna. So Atma means all three. In this context, Krishna, when he's saying Mahatmanas, he's saying that he's talking about the embodied body. And as Rajneesh Prabhu was making the point, that when the Atma comes in contact with Paramatma through the process of chanting devotional service, it becomes great. So it becomes great because it comes in contact with something great. Like you put iron in fire, and iron by nature is cold, but when it is in fire, it's like fire. Not because iron is hot, but because fire is hot. So similarly, when the Atma comes in contact with the Paramatma, because of the greatness of Krishna, it also acquires greatness. Okay, thank you. It's a good question. Any other question, thoughts? Okay, we can go to the next verse. This is verse 14. Always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me, these great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. So this is an expansion on the previous verse, and it speaks about one aspect. So the previous verse talked about three aspects. It talked about Sambandh, Abhiday and Prayojan. How to establish it, how to understand the relationship, establish the relationship, and then perfect the relationship. This verse talks about the second aspect of it, that how does one establish the relationship. So factually speaking, in our lives, this is where we spend most of our time. So for the majority of the souls or majority of the people, that the conviction in their minds that Krishna or no Krishna, that happens relatively quickly, and depending on many factors, depending on their past conditioning, present desires, association, because of the confluence of many issues. But we have seen that very early in this engagement, some people will say, okay, Krishna is God. And some people will say, I don't think so. I think, depending on where they are, some people will say, I think I'm God. Like the impersonalists, they'll say, we are all God. God is a force of nature. One person cannot be God. That's not right. So they might say that, or they might say there is no God, or they might say that I'm not sure there is a God or no God. So they might take to some of the conceptions. But after having accepted Krishna as God, the main path back to Krishna is that of devotional service, which is what takes us, which if we are fortunate could take us one lifetime, if not could take us several lifetimes. But because this is the process in which we are actually disengaging ourselves from the material world and re-engaging with the spiritual world. Right? It's kind of like you go to the doctor and the doctor says that you need to eat right to be healthy. And if you have faith in the doctor, and if you don't have any strong convictions to the opposite, you'll say, okay, I agree. To be healthy, I should eat healthy and I should exercise. But based on that conception, how to reorient your life to eat healthy and exercise, that's a struggle in itself. That the general rule is that food that tastes good is not healthy, right? And food that is healthy will not taste good. If you're sick, you get healthy food and it's like the worst tasting food. And so then you have to over consecutive years or decades, then you have to reorient yourself. This is how I eat, this is how I exercise. So that is abhiday. That is putting it into practice, and the end result is that you have a healthy body, you have a disease-free body. That comes automatically. You don't have to endeavor for it. So this verse, it talks about what does one do when one understands their position with respect to Krishna. So Krishna says that always chanting my glories. So Krishna Katha. So Krishna Katha is the key to all subsequent advancements. Even if a person is very superficially interested, maybe Krishna is God, maybe he is something. Just out of that interest, if a person engages in Krishna Katha, that itself is very, very potent, because it is the doorway to further advancement. It's like there is a castle with walls and parapets and all kinds of things, and there's a door. So if you have to conquer the castle, it's very difficult. The walls are high and the stones are thick. But if somebody opens the door for you, it doesn't matter how high the walls are, how thick they are, you just simply walk into it. So Krishna Katha is that opening of that door. That if one develops an interest to inquire and hear about Krishna, that's why you will see that in the Srimad Bhagavatam, so many wonderful pastimes about Krishna. Krishna in Vrindavan, Krishna as a child fighting with demons, Krishna as a youth dancing with the gopis, Krishna as a young man doing the Mahabharata. These are so wonderful pastimes that they just attract us. When I was talking to Santosh, he was telling me that how you were attracted to like Mahabharata and Ramayana. So all these are the reason that these scriptures are there is because they increase our attraction to Krishna Katha. That is the doorway to our devotional life. Then bowing down towards me and worshipping me. So this verse talks about, so there are 9 processes of devotional service. Shravana Kirtana, Smarana Bandhan, Padya Sevan Das, Pujan, Sakhijan, Atma Nivedan. So these are the 9 processes that are given by Prahlad Maharaj. This verse talks about the 3 potent, all 9 are potent, but 3 are especially potent because they are more accessible. So he says Satatas Kirtanatas Mam. Kirtan is participating in Krishna Katha. Bowing down towards me. So what do we do when we go to the temple? We give obeisances to the deities. Vandanam. It is that we are saying that we are basically making the statement that Krishna is great and we are small. Even when we are in presence of like our elders, at least in the Indian culture, we'll bend down in front of them and touch their feet. So we are giving them a position that is higher than us. So similarly, when we are in the temple, we bow down in front of the deities and worshipping them. Worshipping is archana. So worshipping is giving some donation to the deities, offering ghee lamp, arti, incense, some kind of fruit or flower to the deities. So by executing one or more of the prescribed methods of devotional service, endeavoring with great determination. So the question over here is that why does Krishna use this word, that endeavoring with great determination? It seems to be a little bit out of place over here. So why does Krishna use the word over here, that endeavoring with great determination?
moving from like material conceptions to spiritual, it is still a struggle because the mind is more attracted towards something gross which you can grasp, and then spirituality is a little bit shorter in way. So that is like, say for example, chanting with clearly to hear the mantras which we chant like Hare Krishna. But mind wanders, it's never there to hear that every time. So maybe Krishna is telling about is the endeavor. You need a determination to stay on that path. Because initially you are not going to get the results there.
Thank you. Other thoughts? Then you then.
It's also about determination is equivalent to faith in the process, and we have to presume certain things and then do the endeavor to succeed in that process.
Okay. Good. Thank you. Agaji?
Due to material illusion, like whatever we think good, it may not be good, and it's difficult, like Prabhu told, it's difficult to control our mind. Even all the devotional process are not, like something physical. It depends on our mind, and mind is so fast. Also in Bhagavad Gita it has been explained. The speed will be more than the speed of light.
Correct.
So that's why very difficult.
Just to add to what Prabhuji and Mataji all explained, so determination is required, great determination to stay in the path. But if one doesn't have determination, still continues, it remains as a ritual, and that probably will give that result that we are expecting out of it. So that's why Krishna says, just don't do it just for the sake of doing, then it will become just ritual. Versus when we do it with determination, that will give the desired result.
And also the results are not visible. We can see once the knowledge along if you acquire knowledge, understand, then build the trust, then we may accept it, and then determination and endeavor comes. But like material things, if we are doing something, then we can see the results. But here it's not. We have to
more sublime.
Yeah, sublime.
Good. Thank you.
I strongly agree with Prabhuji's point. But one more thing that I was thinking is, endeavoring with strong determination clearly indicates a strong desire for Krishna. So that is.
That's one point. Strong desire. So this term Dridhavrata, strong determination, Krishna denotes both the conceptions. So the answer that were given actually reflect very accurately the two moods that Krishna is conveying. So one is Dridhavrata because he's anticipating challenges when one takes to this path. Because taking to spirituality is like swimming upstream, because the majority of the people are not taking to it. The majority of the people are taking to, these are my senses, these are the objects to pleasure my senses. What is the shortest distance between the two? So when you take to spirituality, then in a way you're making a commitment to take one step back and say that maybe I need to do something a little different. And people who are a little different are always so sometimes, like they say that you have the safety in numbers, right? That sense of safety in numbers. That if everybody is doing it, it has to be okay. So that sense becomes mitigated when you are taking to spirituality. So how do you keep yourself motivated? Dridhavrata, by strong determination. Right? So sometimes when you're following path of spirituality and there are some material adversities that happen, then the first thing that happens is that it weakens your spiritual resolve. You think that what's the point in worshipping Krishna if he could not protect me from something. Or you will say that this person who lives next to me I know for a fact he does not worship Krishna, but he just bought a bigger car than I did. He bought a more expensive car. What's the point in me? So when you have this this material anxieties or speculation, then spirituality is the first thing that is diminished. So what Krishna is saying is, be determined. What's that verse in Nectar of Instruction? Utsaha nishchaya dhairya tat karma pravardhat. That in order to succeed in spirituality, utsaha, you need to be enthusiastic. Nishchayat. Second thing is, you need to be determined. Dhairyat. That you need to have patience. The point that Mataji was making, that everything does not happen instantaneously. It's not that as soon as you take to Krishna, then all of a sudden you start getting all this divine visions or spiritual realizations. So dhairya, patience, they will happen. But they will happen in due course of time. So Krishna is saying Dhritarashtra. The second aspect of Dhritarashtra is from the spiritual perspective. That when we initially take to spirituality, then we take to what is known as sadhana vaidhi bhakti, which means that we take to bhakti according to rules and regulations. So we follow certain principles. We worship the deity, we chant the holy name, we study the Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada in the purport gives specific instances of fasting. Like, it's not in our nature to fast. But when we take to spiritual advancements, then we fast as a way to make spiritual advancements. Like we fast on Ekadashis, twice a month. We fast on Krishna Janmashtami, once a year. Recently we had Narsingh Chaturdashi, so we fasted till dusk till Narsingh Chaturdashi. Right, so Dhritarashtra. That we have this determination. Ultimately the determination is that we will do whatever is needed to make spiritual advancements. So like when we are students, then we have this Dhritarashtra. At least the good students, they have this Dhritarashtra. We will do whatever is needed to succeed in our academics. Whether it is studying hard, whether it is practicing, going to the lab, trying things out, whether it is group study, so many ways in which we different people make advancements. But then at the end of the day, the person says that whatever is needed, I will do it. And then such people, they succeed in their kind. Similarly, spirituality. But Krishna is saying, have Dhritarashtra, have this firm determination. So this verse comes in conjunction with the previous verse, where Krishna says that such people will then get my shelter. So getting Krishna's shelter is not a small thing. Getting Krishna's shelter means that you are fully protected from everybody at all points of time. Krishna says, just be determined in what you are doing. Just be determined in not being too much illusioned by your material possessions. Just be determined in following the rules and regulations of bhakti, and success is going to be guaranteed. So the other word that is important over here is that these great souls perpetually worship me. So what does perpetually mean? Perpetually means always. And in this context, what Krishna is asking us to do is that we should not become opportunistic devotees. Sometimes we have this notion that when things are going okay, we forget Krishna. But when we are in some kind of anxiety, then we remember Krishna. We say that, okay, this thing is not going well. Now Krishna, then we are going Krishna, 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 take care of it, take care of it. When that thing passes, then we forget Krishna. Right? So that is not perpetual. Perpetual means without any stopping, and or the other way around. Sometimes people will think about Krishna when things are going well, but they'll forget Krishna during times of anxiety. then they are like, what do I do? How do I fix it? Who do I talk to? Should I do this? Should I do that? And when things are more calmer and things are okay, then they say, okay, let me resume my devotional service. Let me resume my bhakti. So the Dhrit Vrata, the determination is that our bhakti should be uninterrupted. So in Nectar of Devotion in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami, he says that bhakti has to have two characteristics for it to be called bhakti. He says, so this is one of the famous verses, Anipilashita Shunyam Jnana Karmadya Navritam Anukulena Krishna no Anushilanam Bhaktir Uttam. So it should be Anukul and Anushil. These are the two primary characteristics of bhakti. So Anukul means that it should be favorable. So one should not say that I'm always thinking of Krishna but I'm always cursing Krishna. That's not bhakti. Right? Like Shishupal. He was always thinking of Krishna but always cursing Krishna. Or Kamsa. Always thinking of Krishna but always thinking how to kill Krishna. So that's not bhakti. Anushil means that in relationship to Krishna. So the bhakti has to be in relationship to Krishna. So one should not say that I'm worshipping, like I had this conversation when I was in India last time, and one person was saying that when I serve my parents, considering them to be like Krishna. So it sounds like a noble sentiment that this person is such a Matra Bhakta, Pitra Bhakta, that he's seeing Krishna in his parents, right? So he's elevating his parents to the position of Krishna. But at the same time, he's downgrading Krishna to the position of his parents. So it's good for his parents, not good for Krishna. Right? So Krishna is Krishna, he's God. You cannot get Krishna down to. It's okay to even worship your parents in relationship to Krishna, but not as Krishna. There's a difference between the two, right? So because what does that mean? That the sambandha gyan is mitigated at that point. The person does not know the position of Krishna. Like Krishna never takes birth, he never dies, he's never under illusion. All those characteristics apply to one's parents. So how can one's parent be Krishna? So if one is properly situated in Sambandha Gyan, then they will not make that. They will not make the consideration. So pure bhakti has these two characteristics. Anukulena Krishna no Anushilanam Bhaktir Uttamam. It is only in relationship to Krishna and it is favorably disposed towards Krishna. So that's why Krishna says that they perpetually worship me with devotion. So Krishna is now talking about, that is why this chapter is called the most confidential, because Krishna is revealing how can one come back to him. So he's talking about how can one make the keys to the gates of the castle. And that's why he calls it the most confidential knowledge. Okay, are we doing with time? So we are at 8:30. Should I continue or should?
No, please.
Should I stop? Okay, so maybe I'll just stop for some discussion and then we won't do the next. We'll do the next verse 9:15 next time. Is there any questions or comments?
So always remembering Krishna in favor or not in favor, like you gave a couple of examples. In today's time, what can be the practical example of somebody who is in the devotional process but still not anukul?
So in today's time, the biggest biggest example of that is when people will worship Krishna along with everybody else. Right? So people will worship Krishna, they will worship the demigods, the devas, they will worship other things, right? So, so the example that I was giving, the reason I was saying it's not anukul, because if you go to a person who is a king, right, and the king has a certain unique position in the kingdom, and then you go to some person who is a minister of the king, and then you say to the minister that you are the king. I consider you to be the king, right? So what you are doing is that it is not favorable to the person who is actually the king, because you are denying the person his position, right? Implicitly what you are saying is that because you are the king, implicitly I am saying he is not the king. Or you might say that I am the king, right? Then you are saying that I am the main person, you are not the main person. So hopefully there are no like Kamsas and Shishupal. Maybe there are, who knows? There are people who are inimical, who have that sense of, some people will say that how can you worship Krishna? He had so many girlfriends, right? And some people will say that he married 16,108 wives. Radha Govind Maharaj was giving this example that once he was doing a Bhagavatam Katha, and then a young woman, she raised her hands and she said, why are you worshipping Krishna? He was a bad character person. He had so many wives. No, the man came later on. So the woman said, why are you worshipping? And Maharaj, he started explaining that they are all Krishna's eternal associates. So Krishna is associating with his own eternal associates. So then the woman's husband jumped in and said that, yeah, but then why did he have to marry 16,108 wives? I don't like the fact that he married 16,108 women. Then Maharaj said that, why are you worried? He didn't marry your wife, right? So, but then Maharaj later on was saying was that the reason, generally Maharajas don't speak like that. But he said the reason he spoke like that because he could see a lot of envy. He was thinking, I have only one wife, Krishna has 16,000 wives. Right. So, so people have that envy towards Krishna. So there are people like that. And to some extent we all have, that's the reason we are here.
Yeah.
We all have, to some extent or the other, different aspects of enmity to Krishna. In some cases it's more latent, some cases it's more prominent.
Just going back to the same class which you have given, saying yes to Krishna while saying no to Krishna. So there are
both have to go hand in hand.
Both have to
go hand in hand. Yeah.
Prabhu, I have one question. Now, like, we don't like anyone else telling us why you don't worship Krishna, Same way, we have no right to tell other people, hey, why do you worship something else? In your own family, there may be some person, your sibling, your son, your daughter. Everybody has their own right to choose whatever they like. And so we have to respect every one of them. It doesn't matter.
So there are a couple of ways to look at it. In a broad sense, I completely agree with what you're saying, that everybody has their own spiritual journey, and we have to respect them, that they're making that spiritual journey. Bhaktivinoda Thakur at one point, he writes this statement that I respect, and so he's even casting a wider net. He says, I respect all of them who are worshipping the God in the form that they are attracted to. Right? So he was casting to Christians and Muslims also. Another way of looking at it also is that if we have that conviction about the authenticity of the scriptures in recommending worship of Krishna, so let's assume I give you a mantra, you chant that mantra, and a gold coin appears in your hand, right? So what will you do? You will go to your loved ones and you say, I have this mantra, that a gold coin appears in your hand, or your health will improve. So it's natural for you to share something beneficial with those that are dear to you, with those who are your friends, your family, ultimately with everybody. So if you yourself have the conviction that devotion to Krishna is for the ultimate benefit of the soul. Like take the case of Ramanujacharya, right? So Ramanujacharya, great Vaishnava saint, and one of his gurus, he had 7 gurus, one of his gurus, he had a mantra that was very, very potent. 17 times Ramanujacharya went to his guru saying that, please give me this mantra. And Ramanujacharya is Ramanujacharya, perfect example of a Vaishnava, strongly following the rules and regulations. But the guru did not give him the mantra, saying that, I don't think you are still qualified. So 17th time when he went, Ramanujacharya said that if you don't give me the mantra, I will give up my life. So the guru said, okay, I see that now you have a strong desire, but I'll give it to you the mantra on one condition, that you do not repeat it to anybody. Ramanujacharya said, okay. So in the year, the guru gave him the mantra. And what did Ramanujacharya do? When he heard the mantra, he recited it, he started experiencing the bliss of being connected with Lord Vishnu. And on his way back, then he climbed up on top of a temple and he shouted out that mantra for everybody. So then his guru found out that he was doing this, he called him and he said, what are you doing? I gave you explicit instructions. Disobeying the instructions of the guru is death to your spiritual life. And you gave me your word. So what, you know that your spiritual life is going to get destroyed, why are you doing this? And then Ramanujacharya said that as I was walking by, I saw all these people around me. They had no hope. They are suffering in this material life and they will continue to suffer for so many other lifetimes. So I would rather myself go to hell for many lifetimes than have all these people suffer lifetime after lifetime. So out of compassion, then he gave them. So ultimately, it's not a matter of force. Prabhupada would give this example that if you see your child with his hand in the fire, then you will not think that it is his free will, let him do it, let him suffer. Why should I impose my will on the child? It is the child's hand that is getting burned. Let him make that decision. You will immediately put forward your hand and pull the hand back, right? So that's the mood of a devotee. If you develop that conviction in yourself that this is what will help, it is natural for you to share it with those that you love. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense, but still at the end it still is the other person, whether he agrees or not. He may think other way around sometimes.
That it is. See, you look at it at the end of the day, Krishna is most powerful.
Yeah.
He can't make you a devotee. Right? So when the person who is most powerful cannot make you a devotee, how can you make anybody else a devotee? Right? So everybody has their free will. You cannot put a gun to somebody's head and say that tomorrow you worship Krishna. Right? You cannot put a gun to somebody's head and say tomorrow you love me. Right? What can you do? You can do what you are doing. You can preach by example. People can see you and say that this Prabhu looks like he's peaceful. What's the Kool-Aid he's drinking? I need that Kool-Aid. And they'll come and ask you, what is it? That, we all go through trials and tribulations, doesn't seem to affect you. You seem to be happy, you seem to be peaceful. So you can preach by example, or you can preach by word. You can say that if somebody is favorable, somebody is open to listening, then you can preach by that. But of course, you can't even force yourself to become a devotee, right? What to speak about other person? So that level of humility should always be there. Okay.
Oh, I know we're running sort of time, but this particular question, I mean, discussion happened that worshipping parents as Krishna. I mean, I heard in so many forums, so many friends saying, yeah, if God is there and your parents are there who need you, then it's better to give preference to parents. And God is there anyway. We cannot worship anytime, but if they need you, parents, you should give preference to them. So I was just thinking this way that Krishna says that, worshipping me or serving me versus serving my devotees, I would be rather, Krishna is more pleased when we serve his devotees. So probably serving parents, the best way possible is to bring them near to Krishna, and then we worship or serve them will be in a way serving Krishna directly. So probably that's the best way that we can serve our parents or our family members, our children, whoever.
Yeah. Well, you should always serve them. Even if they're non-devotees, you shouldn't like, say, oh, you're not a devotee, so you're sick, I don't care about you. You should always serve them, but in the proper conception. Right? So it's not that, like I remember we were once in New Vrindavan, and then New Vrindavan, it's more like a tourist spot also. So there's a bunch of devoted, what do they call them, religious tourists. The bus came in, and then there was one older couple, they were standing. So in New Vrindavan, when you go at that time, they used to give you an aarti, like a thali, to worship the deities. So it would have incense and an aarti. So this particular couple, they stood and their son was worshipping them in front of the deities. So they were standing with the back to the deities, and the son was ringing the bell, and and he was worshipping them. In a way, it's like sweet. Whatever it is that the son has so much of deference for his parents, but not understanding the position of your parents with respect to Krishna, that is where the fault arises, right? Otherwise, even Krishna says that I don't remember offhand, but I'm sure there are many verses in the scriptures that recommend very strongly to worship your parents. There are so many debts that we are born with. Matra Rin, Pitra Rin, that is the biggest debt that we are born with. But we have Guru Rin, we have Raj Rin, so we have the debt to the king, debt to the society, debt to our teachers, and over life we pay it off. So yes, we take care of the parents because it's the dharma, it's the right thing to do. Even Krishna says that. What is not right is confusing the positions of the two. And I know you were saying theoretically, but there could be a situation where who does it happen for? I think for Tukaram, Pundarik, right? What is it? He's Tukaram. No, he's not Tukaram, right? Vitthal, right? He has a situation where Krishna comes and then he says, you wait, I'm serving my Pundarik. He says, you wait, I'm serving my parents. And Krishna is happy with him because he understands both positions. He understands Krishna's position, he understands his parents' position. His parents are also devotees. So, everything is properly situated over there. So that's an example where your Swadharma and Paradharma, they are aligned to one another. But whenever they are in conflict, the recommendation of Bhagavatam and Srimad Bhagavad Gita is that one should try to resolve it in a way that they are together. But if they are in a conflict, then one should always think about Paradharma. Like Bali Maharaj, right? He had this classic conflict. His guru is saying something and his Paradharma is something. So he rejected his guru. His guru is saying that don't give in charity to Krishna, to Vamandev. Don't give in charity. And Bali Maharaj is saying, his Swadharma is to follow the instructions of his guru. His Paradharma is to serve Krishna. And then in the response, Bali Maharaj says that I know that I am offending you, but my Paradharma is that I worship Krishna. So that is what I will do. Yeah?
Even Srila Prabhupada has given emphasis on the subject. Like we are supposed to take care of your parents. And last Sunday when Prabhuji was giving Bhagavatam class, he mentioned also whenever he realized that Srila Prabhupada very strict about this, then he came here and took Mataji, like his mom, to Vrindavan.
Yeah, that's a classic case of...
at the same time, if it can be possible to make both happy, like Krishna as well as parents, so if in case they can become devotee, so that way it will be channelized.
Yeah, that's the best possible situation. And that's where the expertise of a devotee comes in. That how can they always try and align these two things? That your Swadharma and Paradharma, they are aligned to one another. Okay, so we'll stop over here. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.